But should you also watch the next film we're going to speak about, which is Hollow Man? And the answer is no. But Drew, why is that answer no?
The answer is no. Yes, you're correct. So, in Hollow Man, a loose adaptation of H.G. Wells' science fiction classic, The Invisible Man, Kevin Bacon plays Sebastian Cain, an arrogant scientific genius leading a secret Pentagon research project to find a reversible method to turn people invisible by the means of, they quote, phase shifting a human being out of quantum sync with the visible universe.
Makes sense.
Which are certainly some words that screenwriter Andrew W. Marlowe put in the vicinity of one another. Cain, your typical Porsche 911 driving rock star scientist, the kind we're all so familiar with, is, amongst his many negative traits, incredibly impatient. And when progress on his research isn't quick enough, he accelerates human trials by injecting himself with his magic serum. He turns invisible, a process so thorough it can also make the food inside his body invisible, even when vomited out of it. But he can't turn back. At first this is a nuisance, because his invisible eyelids mean he can't close his eyes to the light. Of course, his retinas are also invisible, so he can't see the light anyway, but science, as you may already be able to guess, is not Hollow Man's strong suit. Though that's of little concern, as it's mostly a special effects showcase with some humans around the edges, with only lip service paid to anything else. In a short time though, invisibility has caused psychosis, and Cain starts killing a bunch of people, most particularly the rest of the staff of his lab. Poor Elizabeth Shue. Her game performance here is far better than this nonsense deserves. Because he's now a god or something, Cain must be stopped. He is stopped. It's not very edifying. Thinking of things more around the film, though, I worry about the personality and motivations of Paul Verhoeven at times, and Hollow Man does nothing to ease that. While preparing these notes, I came across this quote from the director. Hollow Man leads you by the hand and takes you with Sebastian into teasing behaviour, naughty behaviour, and then really bad and ultimately evil behaviour. At what point do you abandon him? I'm thinking when he rapes the woman would probably be the moment that people decide, this is not exactly my type of hero. Though I must say a lot of viewers follow him further than you would expect.
Really?
And, yes.
Is that the case? Is it really?
I hope not, but he seems to think so.
He's so
yes.
Dutch.
Yes, this is another Paul Verhoeven film featuring rape, which is really why I have my concerns about him. Setting aside that at no point at all in the film does Sebastian Cain even approach Hero, and that I disliked him within minutes due to his obviously being a colossal arsehole, pretty much the very first thing that he does in waking up as an invisible man is to sexually assault a woman. And that's before the rape. But if you're still on board with him after this, I suggest you have problems. H.G. Wells' 1897 novel The Invisible Man is about a man who is trapped by his own hubris and who has become insane and violent after spending too long unable to see himself. In Hollow Man, Sebastian Cain is a villain whose hubris gives him the means to fulfill the potential of the terrible and violent person that he clearly already was. Wells was inspired by Plato's Republic and the story of the Ring of Gyges, with Glaucon's central notion, with which Socrates disagreed, being that no man would keep his hands off of what was not his own when he could safely take what he liked out of the market, or go into houses and lie with anyone at his pleasure, or kill or release from prison whom he would, and in all respects be like a god among men. That's an interesting philosophical idea. Hollow Man is a boring and brainless slasher film in which a bad man becomes a worse man. Explorations of morality and curiosity happen in other films. But hey, it has some impressive special effects. I didn't actually have the worst time with Hollow Man, but it feels pretty generic in many ways, and certainly of the Paul Verhoeven films I've seen so far, it's the one that felt most like he was simply a director for hire. Dismissive grunt out of 10.
Yeah, no, I agree. This seems like the kind of film that he was brought on to purely because he's someone who could wrangle the special effects well enough. there's like, I can think of a few instances of that in the past as well. Yeah, it is just not very good for the reasons you've already eloquently outlined. It is fundamentally broken because its central character is a bad man who overnight becomes an even much worse man and goes on a kill crazy slasher frenzy. Like you say, and as Wells and Plato came across all those times, all those years ago, there's a central idea here that makes a lot of sense, but this is the worst possible implementation of it that I've seen. It is just not very good on any aspect, again, except for the special effects. My primary and only positive memory of this film was that I managed to pick it up on DVD for about £2 at some point not long after it was released, and I thought that was quite good. Then I watched the film and was rather less impressed with the value for money proposal that offered, because I don't think it's even worth that amount of money. It's just no good at all. I would say even if you want something of this kind of ilk but more modern, go for the Invisible Man film that Lee Whannell put out a couple of years back. Not a perfect film by any respect of the imagination, but it kind of employs a lot of the same ideas, but much more sensibly, with a protagonist that you could actually get behind and a villain that you could actually get behind. Well, you could actually see how that would have happened, even if it was invisible at the time. It's just a better put together notion of the same ideas. Yeah, The Hollow Man's just a bad film in every aspect. Bacon's awful. The only reason I think you might not hate his character is because he's so unconvincing as the character in early stretch that you might not think he's quite as bad as he's coming across, kind of, because he's sort of so. Yeah, he just doesn't convince at any point. He doesn't convince as the sort of evil light version of himself or the evil version of himself, even when you can't actually see him. It's just a bad film. Again, I'm repeating myself, but I do feel that it's important to get across that it is, in fact, a bad film and very much worth not watching. While you could argue it's a more enjoyable watch than Showgirls, again, that's a bar so low that it has been effectively buried. So, yeah, just don't. Yeah. Just don't.
Yes. The way I would frame it is that it's not a more enjoyable watch than Showgirls, it's a less unenjoyable watch.
Yes.
It's because I got to the end of it and it's like, oh, that was bad, but I certainly wasn't quite so upset during it as I was Showgirls. I didn't hate it entirely from beginning to end. I hate everything about it.
Yes, you can at least see at some point there was a good idea somewhere, the genesis of Hollow Man, even if it wasn't anyone really involved with the production of the films. Yes, but no.
Yeah, I mean, and it's certainly not enough to hang a film on, let alone redeem this, but the special effects, particularly for 2000, were quite impressive.
Yes.
And there was some sort of interest in that. And again, like I'd mentioned with Total Vehicle and Robocop earlier, there are some sort of like bits of the technology stuff and things that are going to happen later. They're just like put there for the audience to notice without kind of being too focused on or too spelled out, which I appreciated. And it's kind of frustrating that there were bits and pieces I appreciated, like when the scientists are called upon to deal with this invisible man, they are immediately doing sensible things, like trying some way to like paint or some other liquid or something to make him show up.
Yeah. And
various other things. It was like, rather than just like, what we're going to do, and then it's kind of sort of committee meeting to come up with it. It's like, well, no, they're meant to be smart people, and they do kind of obvious things that probably anybody would do, but like you'd tend not to see in films. There were bits and pieces that I liked, and I did enjoy Elizabeth Shue, even though like she's way too good in this film for this nonsense plot. I mean, she's probably, everybody else is kind of, they're not bad, they're just there. This problem's film beyond Kevin Bacon isn't acting. It's the plot, really. But yeah, it's just, it doesn't feel like a Paul Verhoeven film for the most part. It's kind of misses the point. Has no interesting ideas. There's nothing interesting to say. But it's better than Showgirls.
For what very little that is worth. Yes.
Yes, and it is very, very little. That is the very definition of damning with faint praise.
Yes.